So this is a video I had not intended on making, mostly because we still haven't got all the information, which actually if anything is a key point I'm going to mention many times during this somewhat response to Theresa May's fucking stupid actions. We are going to focus on aspects of a speech she gave after an airstrike was ordered. You see, for those that don't know, the United Kingdom, France and America coordinated an attack on a, quotes, chemical weapons facility in Syria. Syria, for those that don't know, have been claimed to have conducted a chemical weapons attack in Douma, a rebel-held part of Syria. Syria is still going through a civil war, and while last year during the airstrikes and many lengthy hours spent in debate whether we should in fact commit to an airstrike or not, we had quite a lot of information and fact. We were not afforded the same courtesy with this. This, Theresa May, this is directed now to you. This will be your undoing if it is found to not have sarin like some sources are claiming it did. By not taking this before Parliament and debating it like a grown-up, you're not showing yourself to be an iron lady, you are showing yourself to be ignorant. You are making Jeremy Corbyn stronger. And why? Because you didn't afford a courtesy, a good one. And as you are going to say soon enough, you're going to use the word indication. Indication is not now, nor will it ever be, verifiable fact. We now have to wait for an investigation to confirm whether it was justified. But even then, it's not justified until you have the fact. You preemptively struck with no leg to stand on. And I say this now, much like the airstrikes, which I still don't quite support but understand the reason for, I do not support military action taking place in any country that we do not have verifiable fact something in breach of international law is happening. If we don't have all the facts, we don't go to war. You don't start a war on a guess because of some, quotes, sources. Now that I've got that little ramble off my chest, let's listen to Theresa May worm her way out of this.
Last night, British, French and American armed forces conducted coordinated and targeted strikes to degrade the Syrian regime's chemical weapons capability and deter their use.
You had better hope the OPCW find proof of chemical weapons where you demolished some building, or we're going to be an international laughingstock with you on your knees grovelling with Syria. I am unwilling to stand by my government's decision to engage in this. I know that some people have flayed Corbyn for his reluctance to agree to military action. He's a pacifist, he never will. But he is right. This should have been down to discussion and investigation. Syria has once already had their chemical weapons destroyed. Even if they said no, they didn't have any, but you simply requested, I don't know, an inspection? Perhaps a little kind diplomacy. It could have then been proven or debunked and then summarily demolished and destroyed accordingly. Now I know a lot of nations stand by the UK, the United States and France with this. Canada, I believe Australia as well, being two of the biggest countries I can think off the top of my head. But you don't have proof yet. And this is what is very concerning. Oh, and before I forget, Paul Joseph Watson made a video on this where it was conclusively proven that sarin has not been used by the Syrian government, no matter how many times it's been peddled by the media.
For the UK's part, 4 RAF Tornado GR4s launched Storm Shadow missiles at a military facility some 15 miles west of Homs, where the regime is assessed to keep chemical weapons in breach of Syria's obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention.
Okay, so let's say you're telling the truth, and the chemical weapons facility you atomized was in fact a chemical weapons facility. My question to you then is, was the reason you didn't simply put men on the floor to take the facility and confirm it with eyes and cameras and blah 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 because you're afraid of Russia and their intervention, which would inevitably lead to combat and a war? Or is it because you wanted to look strong and powerful and totally not almost encourage a war to happen regardless? I stand by my earlier remarks, I don't support this. Without conclusive proof, I do not support it.
Let me set out why we have taken this action. Last Saturday, up to 75 people, including young children, were killed in a despicable and barbaric attack in Douma, with as many as 500 further casualties. We have worked with our allies to establish what happened, and all the indications are that this was a chemical weapons attack.
And here we have the magical word that was mentioned earlier, indication. So let's talk about this for a moment. You have information flooding in, you got Trump on Twitter, you got Emmanuel Macron with his pensioner wife, and then you got Theresa May caring about the children, which makes very little sense because we sell a load of our military stuff in the Middle East. And you decide to intervene in Syria without all the information available. And by that I mean proof. This is going to get brought up in PMQs and I know it. You're going to get destroyed. There is no two ways about this. Jeremy Corbyn is going to beat the living shit out of you verbally in PMQs because you took military action without fact, and that is going to make him look good. You are basically setting him up to win. I do not want Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. I do not want his brand of politics in charge of this country. But right now, I do not want you in charge of this country either. For God's sake, your predecessor at least had the decency to take it before Parliament and let them decide. You should be ashamed of yourself.
We have seen the harrowing images of men, women and children lying dead with foam in their mouths.
While I'm sure a number of those pictures are in fact true, there were others that were trending all over social media that were a bit of a lie, and yet being spun as if they were true. Take this one for example, supposedly a young girl sleeping beside her two dead parents. Absolute bollocks.
First-hand accounts from NGOs and aid workers have detailed the most horrific suffering, including burns to the eyes, suffocation and skin discoloration, with a chlorine-like odour surrounding the victims.
So now would be a fantastic time to talk about chlorine as a, quotes, chemical weapon, because that's fun. Firstly, chlorine is the second most electronegative element in the periodic table. Fluorine trumps it. It typically bonds with itself though because of how electronegative it is. Chlorine though is very versatile, used in a whole number of things: salt, deodorants, and of course to clean swimming pools. But long ago, back in the day, it was a chemical weapon used in trenches, where the temperatures were a little bit cooler, so it was a tad more potent. I'm not going to refute that there may have been chlorine in that facility, or that it may have actually been used against the people of Syria in Duma. I just want to point out that as it weighs more than air in incredible heat, it's going to dissipate very quickly, and while there would be some effects, it is not anywhere near as deadly as, quotes, another toxin that is claimed to have been used in Syria, i.e. sarin, the nerve agent. But then again, with a whole facility that big, how much sarin do you think they had? You'd only need a very small amount to wipe out a city anyway, certainly by comparison to chlorine anyway.
I cannot tell you everything, but let me give an example of some of the evidence that leads us to this conclusion. Open source accounts allege that a barrel bomb was used to deliver the chemicals. Multiple open source reports claim that a regime helicopter was observed above the city of Duma on the evening of the 7th of April. The opposition does not operate helicopters or use barrel bombs.
You fucking what? This is not evidence. This is claims. It would have been really nice for someone to whip out a phone or a camera. Just get us something more concrete than claims. Dear God, woman, you're going to lose the next general election.
And reliable intelligence indicates that Syrian military officials coordinated what appears to be the use of chlorine in Duma on the 7th of April. No other group could have carried out this attack. Indeed, Daesh, for example, does not even have a presence in Duma. And the fact of this attack should surprise no one. We know that the Syrian regime has an utterly abhorrent record of using chemical weapons against its own people.
Two things. Firstly, with regards to the Syrian regime comment, as it was essentially handed down from father to son, although he was elected, kind of, I do tend to agree it's a regime and not so much a secular government like it is argued to be by people like Paul Joseph Watson. Second, just because you don't have proof that the enemy uses it doesn't mean they haven't got the facilities or the means to use it. You cannot tell me you truly understand the enemy. Oh, I have a third point actually. In 2013, Syria had its chemical weapons destroyed. I'm not saying they haven't since restocked. I'm just saying this is a lot of baseless assertions right now. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope later on this week we get enough information that conclusively proves they did in fact have chemical weapons. But history is against you on this. certainly with regards to Sarin. Of course, he has done abhorrent things to his people, I'll agree, but you don't have as much evidence as you think you do, which Corbyn is going to use against you soon enough.
At Khan Sheikhoun on the 4th of April last year, the Syrian regime used sarin against its people, killing around 100 with a further 500 casualties.
Right. Well, this all seems rather factual. I keenly await the investigations to take place. I keenly await the impending investigations and results. I hope I'm wrong to an extent and that Assad did do it, because then my government at least doesn't look so fucking stupid. But then they still do for taking military action without fact. And I mean fact that they had, not claims or indications. To those who expected me to be a bit more comical than usual, I do apologise, but quite frankly this irks me. I do have a couple videos planned. I might try and do them this week as well, so for the sake of it, I hope you all have a lovely day and thank you all for listening.